back there looking at his watch, pointing to his watch. I hope he's online. I'm just chilling. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jamana Tira Bana Chadi Jamana Tira Bana Chadi Jamana Tira Bana Chadi Jamana Tira Bana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodhanandana Vrajaranjana Yasodhanandana Vrajaranjana Yasodhanandana Vrajaranjana Yamana Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya paramahamsa Charja Astatara His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi Little different experience for our Sunday program, but I guess we're all kind of getting used to it, and we don't get forever used to it. I hope it does change eventually, we can get back in the temple together for kirtan and deity darshan and everything. The topic I'd like to speak about this evening is specifically it's the final prayer of Prahlada Maharaj to Lord Nrsimhadev after he appeared from a pillar and took care of Hiranyakashipu and the other soldiers that were assisting him, and Prahlad offered prayers at the request of Lord Brahma to pacify Lord Nrsimhadev. Mission accomplished, he became pacified. And he spoke many, many wonderful things, but as we find in Bhagavad Gita or any other teaching, the concluding teaching or the concluding prayer has some special significance. So I thought to speak on that particular verse out of all of his prayers. Actually, there are some additional ones. After he prays, after he finishes, this is text 50. You want to look it up in your books at home. 7950, 50. Lord Nrsimhadev speaks some things, and that closes the chapter. And then chapter 9, there's some more prayers. I'll make reference to one of those. Translation to text 50. Starts Tat. Therefore, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, best of all persons to whom prayers are offered, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because, without rendering 6 kinds of devotional service unto you, you list 6 kinds of devotional service. Offering prayers, dedicating all the results of activities, worshiping you, working on your behalf, always remembering your lotus feet, and hearing about your glories. Who can achieve that which is meant for the paramahamsas? In the very beginning of the Prahlada Maharaj section, there's an introductory, a chapter introduction written by Srila Prabhupada in chapter 6. And just 2 sentences in that introductory section. Prabhupada writes that Prahlada Maharaj is coming in disciplic succession. His spiritual master was Narada, and Narada's spiritual master was Lord Brahma. So he's coming in disciplic succession, and his way of executing devotional service teaches us the mood, Prabhupada's words, the mood of pure devotion. And if one can enter into that mood that Prahlad has taught, one can learn the ways of achieving the goal of life. So there's practices of devotional service, which I'll assume we're all quite familiar with. There's activities of sadhana bhakti. And there's a mood about those activities or connected with those activities that opens the door for the goal of life. Say it again differently, same thing. There's behaviors and there's what's behind the behaviors. Some of you in our audience here, you're probably familiar with Rupa Goswami. In case you're not, Rupa Goswami was the foremost of Lord Chaitanya's next generation followers. And Rupa Goswami wrote volumes of literature according to Lord Chaitanya's instruction to do so on the ways of devotional service. And one of those books, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, gives details of the processes of bhakti. Here in this verse, there's mention of 6 ways of devotional service that lead to the paramahamsa stage. Rupa Goswami elaborates the 9 processes of bhakti, and in fact, Prahlad, in his words to his father, Hiranyakashipu, he identifies 9. And in this time we're quite familiar with those 9, beginning with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc. The processes of bhakti. So he certainly, Prahlad knows the 9 because he spoke them. Here he's speaking 6. I think I'm just going to touch on this. It's there's kind of a tendency for readers to, hey, wait a minute, that's different. There's 6 and over there it's 9. What's going on? And then maybe making analysis to say, well, these 4 line up with those 4, but then there's 5 more over there, there's 2 more over here that don't line up, so we're trained in this analysis process. I'll just mention there's 9 processes, and here there's 6. 4 of those 6 align. Offering prayers, we read in Rupa Goswami's teaching, one of the devotees of the Lord achieved perfection through prayers, and that was Akrura. He offered prayers to Krishna. Here the word is not vandanam, that's the word in the earlier portion of this canto. Here it's stuti. 2 different Sanskrit words, they mean the same thing, offering prayers. Stuti. And dedicating all the results of activities. Just the very language, this Prabhupada's language, it's his translation, that's karma yoga. Dedication of the results of one's work to Vishnu. Sacrifice unto Vishnu, Yagyavai Vishnu. That's karma yoga. Worship, the Sanskrit word here, it's Sanskrit word, the other is karma puja. And here's puja. Puja in the 9 process of bhakti is archana, Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj achieved perfection. He was one of the incarnations of the Supreme Lord. And Prithu achieved perfection through deity worship or puja. So we have 2 mashups. Puja and archana, that's Prithu. Offering prayers, bandhanam or stuti, that's Akrura. Always remembering your lotus feet. Vishnu Smaranam, that was Prahlad. Here it's Smriti Charanayo. Smriti Charanayo, remembering your lotus feet. Prahlada Maharaja. And hearing about your glories, that was Parikshit Maharaj, Shravanam. Here it's Shravanam Katayam. So we have a matchup of 4, and then there's 2 in this list of 6 that aren't in the list of 9. So that's offering the results to the Supreme Lord, Karma Yoga, and working on your behalf, which is quite similar. The word is Sanskrit. In Prahlad's teaching here is karma. So how do you process this? There's 9 and here's 6. What's going on? One way to process it is they're different models. They both accomplish the same thing. The different models, they both accomplish the same thing. Here's another example of that. This is just like little education in reading scriptures for the moment. In chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna speaking that there's the material energies are made of 8 elements. 5 gross, 3 subtle, Bina Prakrishtir Ashtada. That's chapter 7. Now let's go over to chapter 13. We find there's 24. So which is it? Is it 8 or is it 24? And we can get puzzled. And it's just a different model. And you can unpack it, within the 8, there's subcategories of the 8, and you can do it like that. It's just different, but it's not quite exactly like that. It's just different models to explain Prakriti. And both work. Just like, to get from some unknown place to an unknown place, you put it in your GPS, the destination, and presto, you make it to the place. But there's other methods you can get to the place. You get a map, street map, that's another. And go to Google and tell you turn left, turn right, and that's another. Different models of doing the same thing, getting from point A to point B. It's not like this one's right, if this one's right, that one's got to be wrong. It's not like that. It's different ways of picturing. The importance is the process of devotional service. That's the emphasis. And details may differ. In this case they do. By the same person, 9 and 6, fine. It's just emphasis is on ways of devotional service. Here's some. And mentioned specifically here is, these are methods by which one can become paramahamsa. Now Prahlad doesn't consider himself paramahamsa. We know that he's a paramahamsa, perfected soul. So what's a paramahamsa? In the purport, Prabhupada's language says, a paramahamsa is one who has accepted the essence of everything. That's pretty good. One who has accepted the essence of everything. The way that I was taught this term paramahamsa, Prabhupada would speak of it in this way. A swan, unlike other birds, the swan has a special capacity, a special beak, where there's milk in water, and their beak can extract the milk from the water. Doesn't explain how they do it. It's not a technology topic. It's just a capacity topic. A swan can take milk and separate it from water. And similarly, a paramahamsa, a perfected soul, can take essences or truth anywhere. Take gold from a filthy place. You would use that term sometimes. Gold is gold. It may be in a filthy place, but you can extract the gold from the filthy place. You're rich. You have gold. So a paramahamsa is one who, Prabhupada's words, has accepted the essence of everything. So Prahlad is teaching the way of devotional service. Now I'm going to go to the purport. I'll read the first line of the purport. The Vedas enjoin, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo Na Medhaya Na Bahuna Shrutena. Doesn't say where it's from, so I looked it up. And it's referred to twice in the Upanishads. Katha Upanishad, principally, is this verse. And Mundaka Upanishad, exact same verses in the Mundaka Upanishad. And interesting is bahuna shrutena. Bahuna, bahu means many, shrutena, hearing. So the translation goes like this. The Supreme Lord is not attained by expert explanations, pravachanena, vast intelligence, medaya, nor even by much hearing, bahuna shrutena. Because the 9 processes of bhakti start with hearing. Shravanam, kirtanam, Vishnu smaranam, etc. than the other 6. But bahuna shrutena, even after hearing and 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 hearing, you don't become paramahamsa just by quantitative hearing. How do you become a paramahamsa? You become a paramahamsa by accepting the essence of hearing and chanting and remembering and worshipping and offering prayers. So what is accepting the essence about? It's right in the verse. I'll just read this, usually in purport. Prabhupada quotes just the first half, how the Supreme is not understood. One cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by studying the Vedas and offering prayer. It doesn't mean don't study the Vedas and don't offer prayers, or don't engage in extensive hearing. It doesn't say don't do those things, but those things alone are not sufficient to understand the personality of Godhead. So what's sufficient? Bhakti. Well, elevated bhakti is where one doesn't just do the activity. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. It's the seva. It's the mood of love with which the activity is done. The process of understanding the Lord, therefore, is bhakti. Without bhakti, simply following the Vedic injunctions to understand the absolute truth will not be helpful at all. The process of bhakti is understood by the paramahamsa, one who has accepted the essence of everything. The results of bhakti are reserved for such paramahamsa. And this stage cannot be obtained by any Vedic process other than devotional service. Now, I was informed that on Sunday, because normally Sunday there's this open door, please come and attend our Sunday program and attend Mangal Arati and chant rounds with the devotees and Guru Puja, Tulsi Puja, and hear the Bhagavatam class. So it's lockdown time, so we can't do that. So I was encouraged to speak something about improving sadhana, because that's been what everyone's been doing during this pandemic period. So this is an encouragement. This topic is specifically an encouragement by Prahlad, and I'm just trying to do a little service on behalf of Prahlad to encourage all of you to try to capture the essence of your practices of sadhana. If you capture the essence, you'll be very happy. If you don't capture the essence, you know what happens. The mind will wander, things start to become mechanical. Somebody was sharing with me 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, they find even in their worship of the deity, they catch themselves just doing things mechanically, placing the plate on the altar and ringing a bell and saying some prayers and then the arati. Even things that are very clearly personal can become routine with minus bhakti. So what's the essence? Bhakti is the essence. What's the essence of bhakti? What's the essence of bhakti?
Love.
Well, I was making reference to it's loving service. What's the essence of loving service? I was making reference to Rupa Goswami, who explained in detail these 9 processes. But what's the essence of the bhakti process? Or any one of them? Or all of them? Or combination? The essence, Rupa Goswami gives in a very nice verse, that's the essence of the entire nectar devotion. So, to understand Prahlad's prayers, we need the assistance of Rupa Goswami to understand what the essence. Paramahamsas understand, but Rupa Goswami just kind of lays it out. The essence of bhakti is Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. So Anukulyena, the object is Krishna. Shilanam, Anushilanam, that's the activities. The object is Krishna, and the mood is Anushilana. Krishna is to be pleased. And that mood that Krishna is to be pleased is within the heart of every living entity. I'm staying in the sannyasi quarters, and by the windowsill in the bathroom there's 2 little spiders, probably Mama and Papa Spider, really tiny guys, and they just kind of sit there. They've been there since I've been there, so like we're just sharing the room together. And when I look at them, I wave and say Hare Krishna, and I'm thinking, inside the heart of this one and that one, there's a soul, and inside the heart of the soul, there's this tendency to please Krishna. It kind of took a wrong turn somewhere, and they ended up in the body of a spider, but the soul has that innate potential. Every living entity in the heart of hearts has that innate propensity to be a source of pleasure for one who has already all pleasure, but it's their nature, their identity, their happiness, and that's ours also. So that the ways of devotional service, the practices and activities, the bahuna shrutena, the hearing, and the pravachanena, the speaking, and the shruti, or the bandhanam, the prayers, or the whatever things that are made up of the culture of spiritual activity. Those are nice activities, but that's not what the essence is. The essence is doing any of those things, or all of those things, or combination of those things, with awakening the intention that Krishna is to be pleased. That's this anukulyena word. And paramahamsas, they captured it. Or it captured them. And when it captures them, here's the other half of that verse from Katha Upanishad. He is attained only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. Now, Prabhupada doesn't refer to that other half of the Katha Upanishad verse. He just expresses it in simple English language. During breakfast yesterday morning, I was hearing Prabhupada speak from early verses of chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita, recordings, of course. And he referred to the verse, this very same Katha Upanishad verse, saying Krishna cannot be realized by these other methods. And then he didn't refer to the Sanskrit like in this purport, but he expressed the essence very directly. Krishna reveals himself to those who he wants to reveal himself to. Let's say it negatively. Krishna doesn't reveal himself to mudhas. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, I don't reveal myself to mudhas, to foolish people. Naham prakasha sarvasha yogamaya samavrita mudho yam nabijanati. But he does reveal himself to those that have captured the essence of things. And then even for those who have captured the essence of things, it's still dependent upon his mercy. It's dependent upon his mercy. In our morning classes, if you haven't been attending the morning classes, you're welcome to do so, 7:30 in the morning. We've been discussing a very fascinating chapter where Akrura is kidnapped by agents of Varuna. Nanda is kidnapped, what did I say? Huh? Akrura. Nanda is kidnapped. Nanda is kidnapped by agents of Varuna. Krishna rescues him, and when Krishna brings him back, Nanda tells the elder cowherd men what the experience was. He saw the opulence of Varuna. He saw Varuna and his associates with all of their opulence worshipping little Krishna, his little son. And they started going, wow, who is he? He must be Narayan. Will he show us his abode? Are we going to go there after this life? Because they were thinking of themselves like ordinary folks, conditioned souls, wandering through higher and lower species based on karma. Now we're here and we're cowherds and simple people. Is he going to take us to his abode? Will he show us his abode? So Krishna decided he showed them his abode. He showed them the Krishna Loka. And there's a procedure he went through. But our acharyas explain, they saw because he wanted to show them. And he wanted to show them because they were his dear devotees and they wanted to see. So he showed them. So there's a qualification to see him. Yes. Become like Prahlad is describing in all of his prayers, free from material affinity. That's not easy. We're conditioned souls. The two little spiders on the windowsill, they have some material affinity, and so do we. They're different. But we have our material affinity, that's why we get material bodies. So now what to do? Because I have my material affinity. And so how to connect that affinity with the purpose and mission of life? Well, the bhakti process helps us. It's the vehicle to get there. But it's not just the vehicle. It's the essence is transitioning to the mood of wanting to please Krishna. That's Prahlad, inside and outside and in the middle. He is teaching the way of pure devotional service. Now, one of his prayers in chapter 10, that's the one that follows chapter 9, you can look it up in your Bhagavatam later, text 3. He expresses to Lord Nrsimhadev, seeing in this world people are afflicted by misery because of too much absorption in fruitive activities, you requested me to come here and teach the way of pure devotional service. So the way of pure devotional service is not behaviors only. The way of devotional service is awakening of a desire to try to do all that we do for the pleasure of Krishna. And it starts with sound. It starts with the hearing process. And from the hearing process it goes to the other senses and the entire range of human existence can be propelled or moved forward by a desire to please Krishna. And Prahlad, is ending his prayer on this note. The paramahamsa stage, that's the topmost stage. The paramahamsa stage is achieved by the same things that all of us attending this class are doing, at greater degree, lesser degree. But it's not just the activities. The activities are meant to bring us to the essence. And the essence, one more time, is anukulyena. Krishna should be pleased. Just a small embellishment. There's a reference to the word paramahamsa earlier in the first canto of Bhagavatam in Queen Kunti's prayers. Queen Kunti was a great devotee of Krishna as well. And in addressing Krishna, here's her verse. Tata paramahamsanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidanartam katam pashyema hi striyaha. The translation: you yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service onto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? She is very humble. She understands Krishna perfectly. But she's comparing herself in a humble way to those that have perfect discrimination power and can see matter from spirit, and in that position of seeing matter and spirit, they worship you. Those are paramahamsas. Those who have captured the essence of everything. So Prahlad wants us to capture the essence of our devotional practice. Again, emphasizing what I was asked to emphasize here on Sunday. Please take your devotional practices gradually, at least, to the level where you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. You're making your offerings to your deity at home, or offering some prayers, chanting of your mantra, reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, explaining it to others, pravachanena, shrutena, and so forth, with the mood that Krishna should be pleased. It's very, and with this, because of time, those of you that are accustomed to come to our temple, you know our young devotee community, the youth. There's one thing they really like. Well, there's two things they really like: kirtan and prasadam. Of course, that's universal. Kirtan and prasadam. Even people that don't know bhakti at all, they like kirtan and they like prasadam. So, when helping a young person that likes kirtan understand the essence of kirtan, I've had maybe 25 different discussions with young people on this following topic. It's one thing to become proficient in kirtan. You become really good at mridanga playing or playing kartals nicely, or harmonium, or learn different melodies so you can sing nicely, and it's fantastic. All of that is fantastic. So it's not to minimize those things, but the real happiness is not just the musicality of kirtan done in a very polished way. The real happiness of kirtan is chanting for the pleasure of Krishna. So when you come to the temple and you sit before the deity, or in your home, you sit before the deity, and your consciousness is moving towards what to speak of. If you become absorbed in singing for the pleasure of the deity, singing for the pleasure of Krishna, there's a happiness in that musicality can't touch. And that's the consciousness we want to cultivate in the 9 processes of bhakti, or the 6 processes of bhakti, or any one of them process of bhakti. In your sadhana at your home, or when you come and when we're allowed to open the doors, you can come to the temple and engage in sadhana together with the devotees. That's the essence, that Krishna should be pleased. It's not the ritual or the detail. Rituals are fine, details are fine. That's not the essence. Wanting to please Krishna, that's our objective. And when that objective awakens, Krishna will smile. And if he so desires, he'll show himself to us. That's what this purport is saying. It's what the Katha Upanishad text is saying. We will come to understand Krishna, at least, whether we see him or don't see him. We can come to understand him. And when we understand him, we love him. And we love him, we serve him. And to understand him, we need to serve him. But it increases as we cultivate the consciousness that Krishna is to be pleased. He's at the center. We're meant for his service. And that's our life. So that's Prahlad's teaching. And I wanted to end his prayer, to cover his final prayer with this little message. So we have a little bit of time for some discussion. Let's see if the way that we've been doing this is we have these video conference and Zoom conferences. It's the people in the room can speak something first if they have some topic they'd like to raise, and then we'll see if the online people have something. Yes?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. You mentioned Anukulyasya Krishna Anushilanam. But I mean, we are subjective people. So how do we know that what we feel is the Anukulyasya versus somebody else? This is Anukulyasya.
That just the Sanskrit.
Krishna Anushilanam.
Yeah, Anukulyena is Rupa Goswami's term describing for the pleasure of Krishna. Anukulyasya is part of that explanation of what the process of surrender is. Anukulyena is Rupa Goswami's term. So, how do we know what's pleasing to Krishna? Well, we know from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, at least in principle. But the explanation is, if I'm following the vidhis or the rules of Shastra given by Sadhu and Guru, then comes, am I doing this for the pleasure of Krishna? Just use that example that someone shared with me 10 days ago. They're doing arti, as they're according to the rules. They make the offering according to the rules. They're doing the arti, and they're feeling and sharing this, little gathering, that they feel they're doing it in a mechanical way. So that's the vidhi is there, the rule and regulation is there, but the mood is not there. So now back to your question, how do we know whether it's pleasing to Krishna? Well, an essential part is it's something that's offerable to Krishna for his pleasure. And then the additional part is the love and devotion with which you do it. Or using the language of Bhagavad Gita, Mama Nusmara Yudhyacha. Mama Nusmara means remembering Krishna. And Yudhya, in Arjuna's case, he's a warrior, so Yudhyacha, engage in your prescribed duty, fighting. Always remember Krishna and perform your prescribed duties. Those are the two elements. So that do the right thing, that's essential, and the mood of wanting to please Krishna, that's also essential. So how do we know if we have the mood to please Krishna? Well, here's one. Put your hand in your bead bag, and where does your mind go? Or here's another. There's some inconvenience. There's a pinch. And are you ready to continue with your activities even when there's some pinch? There's some inconvenience. So love is inconvenient, doesn't make any difference. Convenience, inconvenience. Unconditional, like an example that Prabhupada would give us is the love of a mother. And the love of a mother doesn't mind at all if the child cries, the child makes messes, or the child passes stool, and she just loves being the mother and cleans the baby and picks up the messes and tolerates the noise because she loves the child. It's just part of motherhood. A loving mother is like that. So, as a mother has unconditional love for her child, a devotee can learn from motherhood to have unconditional love for Krishna. That is, there's joy and contentment in doing something for Krishna regardless of convenience and inconvenience. That's a measure of, is it being done for Krishna's pleasure? I saw Radha Krishna today. And some of you may know, I didn't know till I saw him. He hasn't been well for 2 months. And he came out wearing his mask, looking quite thin. And he lost 15 pounds, and he's not a heavy person. Because of the diet that he's been on, because of some illness that he's contending with, and getting better. But, so in our little discussion, it hasn't been easy. It was describing without detail. And so I asked him, have you been able to continue with his classes? You know, Radha Krishna, he smiled and he gave his little chuckle. And it's, yeah, somehow I'm able to do that, and I feel, so my reply to him was, that's the lesson, you know, that when there's inconvenience, that which lifts us above the inconvenience is the service that suits our nature, and in him being a teacher suits his nature. That's Radha Krishna. It's not only the words that he speaks, but his whole consciousness, his whole character, his whole quality is teaching others by words and by example. And then again, everybody knows that smile of his, and he smiled and nodded, and he like, that's it. That's the lesson. That's the lesson. That the pleasing Krishna is, of course, we have our physical limitations, but service to Krishna can help us rise above even our physical limitations. The mind is troubled, the senses are troubled, the circumstances are troubled. The world that we're in is really chaotic. It's not getting better. So where's the shelter? Our shelter, according to the Bhagavatam, is the Bhagavatam. In this age of Kali, this dark age of Kali. And that shelter is doing things for the pleasure of Krishna, hearing topics of Krishna for the pleasure of Krishna, not just for the pleasure of overcoming the craziness. It dissipates the darkness of ignorance in our life and in the world, and if we can be instruments for that, that's pleasing to Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, so online anything?
Yeah, there's a question from Shashi Rekha Devidasi. Maharaj, are the Paramhamsa stage and Brahma Bhuta stage are the same?
They're related, but Sanskrit terms often have some specific application. So Brahmabhuta has its application that is absorbed in the spiritual conception, Brahmabhuta stage, detachment from the material conception of self and reality, absorption in the spiritual conception, that's the Brahmabhuta language or term. And Paramahamsa, it has its similarities, of course, but it is specific to a soul that has, in their way of life, in their lifestyle, in their life activities, has captured Krishna. It captured the soul's natural function. They're similar but different. Anything else? Okay. Looks like an early class. Chirag will be happy.
He's online actually.
Is he?
Listening. Yeah. He's
Oh,
there.
hi, Bob Chirag. Yeah,
We have one question from Uttama Bhakta Prabhu.
okay.
The essence of pleasure of Krishna is that I am a servant and he is a master? That's the question.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Well, you just borrowed Prahlad's words. It's in chapter 10 in his prayers. So his question is, or statement, is that the essence of bhakti? That's his question.
The essence of pleasure of Krishna.
Well, it's more precisely, it's the essence of the mood of a servant. Now, Krishna is pleased when one has such a selfless mood and simply wants to serve him. But the terminology is describing dasya rasa or dasya bhaktas. They just want to serve, and that's Prahlad. Prahlad is, his mood is the servant of Lord Vishnu that he learned from Narada Muni. So it's Krishna is pleased by that, but that's not the essence. The essence is the terminology is mode of service, dasya rasa.
There are two questions. One is from Ruchi Ramana Mataji. She's saying, my understanding is that by pleasing spiritual master, we can please Krishna. How do we know spiritual master is pleased?
Don't smile.
Okay. Next question is from.
Wait a minute.
It's not over.
I'm being cute. um, there are going back to Prahlad, there's a mood of devotional service. And what's pleasing to the spiritual master is that a disciple or an individual, a soul, is recognizing their position wherever they are in their spiritual journey, and they're striving with Krishna's mercy to go further on the path towards Krishna. So, in other words, one may be a high devotee, one may be a low devotee, maybe an in-between devotee, one may be kind of an up and down devotee. Whatever that characterization is, it's not that's pleasing to Krishna or displeasing. But according to one's capacity, one is making a sincere effort. And even when one is making a sincere effort, there may be setbacks. There's always going to be the unsteadiness in the earlier stages of bhakti, or it's always going to be there. That's okay. According to my capacity, I'm making a genuine effort to try to get closer to Krishna, to go further on that path to Krishna. Wherever one is, that's very pleasing. Sometimes we find that devotees fall in the ditch, or they drift, or they go through a rough patch, or something like that. It doesn't mean that person has displeased the spiritual master. There's an acceptance from the spiritual master's side regardless. But when that person recognizes, whoa, I've gone way over to the side of the road and maybe fell into the ditch and tumbled a few times around. Let me get back, and makes little efforts to get back. That's very pleasing. If you say negatively, it's not displeasing, but it's painful to see devotees not just slacken, but start just going into a place where they're doing things that are detrimental to themselves and to others around them. That's painful. Not exactly displeasing, but it's painful. So what's pleasing is recognizing this is where I am, with honesty, and I want to, making efforts to make a reasonable, doable step in the direction towards the bhakti path again, or towards closer to Krishna. That's pleasing. That's pleasing to the spiritual master. And if one can accomplish that in some kind of steady manner, very nice. Very nice.
The next question is from Archana Vaidya Mataji. She says, when we are not at the stage where everything is for Krishna's pleasure, how do we start? What do we practically do?
Associate with devotees that understand that process of serving for the pleasure of Krishna, learn from them. and study Prabhupada's books, because you'll learn from them also. Do some introspection, and you'll find there's lots of other things besides for the pleasure of Krishna going on. And look towards the light and go towards the light. And consider doable ways where you can be more mindful of doing what you do for Krishna.
We have a question from Shamsundar Guru.
Shamsundar. The Shamsundar?
He thanks you for your Vani association.
Okay.
In our conditioned state, when we are in good association, it invokes deep feelings in our heart. Or, sometimes, we make a vow, but we see in our practical life that the burning desire slows down. How to maintain the determination and fire.
Good association and renewing your commitments. Commitment, the unsteady bhakti is caused by anarthas or impurities of heart. So we have to stay the course with purification, because impurities of heart don't go away so quickly. They're very stubborn. And we hang on to them. We're inclined to hang on to them in our conditioned state. So it makes it easier for them to stick around. Our impurities of heart. So stay the course with sadhana bhakti, stay in good association, and continue to strive to hear nicely and apply those things that we hear. Application is particularly important, and application for the purpose of pleasing Krishna is another step. Those are some recommendations. Thank you for your next question. Thank you for coming to the Sunday program virtually.
We have a question from Sanchari.
Okay.
In the case of Prahlad Maharaj, because of the purity and sincerity of his love and effort, the Lord himself appeared to protect him.
Yeah.
How do we, in our stage, experience the Lord's protection? There is no doubt that Krishna is present with us always, but our connection to him is not fully stable. When there seems to be so much unrest and heaviness in the world today, how can we understand how the Lord is protecting all souls?
Well, he's protecting them according to their inclination to be protected. And some people are quite cavalier about that. So he's not protecting all souls in the world today. He's allowing them the leash of some freedom. Here's your human form of life, to use it properly, and they say no. I'm going to use it the way I want to. And so they're not experiencing the same protection as those that abide by Dharma. And those that abide by Dharma are protected by Dharma. And that means by Krishna. The first part is Prahlada's this most elevated position, and we're not. So we can move towards that elevated position by proper practice and by calling for mercy to help us get to a more elevated condition than our present condition. Prayer or submission of the self to the protector, Krishna, is very important. Submission and appeal for mercy. And gradually our spiritual well-being can evolve, and Krishna will extend further protection as we as our consciousness becomes more evolved. That's it.
One
More?
more.
Okay.
This one's from Ravinder Yaram Prabhu.
Okay.
He asks, till now, I have only heard Prahlad's wonderful childhood pastimes. Is there any place his adulthood pastimes are mentioned?
Well, he became king. And I heard a story, but I wasn't able to verify the source, so I'm reluctant to say the story. But something happened that the story goes, the principle makes sense. The story goes like this: he was, as a king, he was traveling about, and there was some challenge, and he met the challenge, but his meeting the challenge didn't work so well, and then because his expertise in bhakti is remembering Krishna. By remembering Krishna, he understood that he understood that he forgot to remember Krishna, and then the solution became very clear. Something like that. We hear about Prahlad in relation to Bali Maharaj also. Prahlad had a son who had a son named Bali. And when Bali Maharaj was tied up by the ropes of Vamana, Prahlad came. And there was this noise going on about what Bali was subjected to, was it fair? Because he surrendered everything, yet the person who he surrendered everything to tied him up like a criminal. And Prahlad came, his grandfather, and said, it was good. So he has some involvement like that. We hear about Prahlad in Canto 5, Srimad Bhagavatam. Those of you that are a little familiar with Canto 5, a one big section is Bhumandala, the plane of this earthly realm. And Bhumandala is Bharat Varsha is one of the 9 regions in Jambudvip, and Prahlad occupies another one of those Varshas, Hari Varsha, where Lord Nrsingadev is the predominating deity, and Prahlad is there worshipping Lord Nrsingadev in Hari Varsha. Those are some little references I can recall. Okay, so we're good? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Please go this way.